Hey there, fellow knowledge seeker. You're prepping for exams, right?
Yeah, it's that time of year again, isn't it?
It can feel like climbing Mount Everest in flip-flops sometimes, am I right?
Definitely. It's a challenge for sure.
But guess what? We're here to make sure you're wearing hiking boots with steel toes.
Love it. So what are we diving into today to gear up our listeners?
We're taking a deep dive into the ultimate guide to acing your exams.
That's a good one. A classic for a reason.
It really is. This isn't just a quick summary, though.
Right, we're going deeper.
We're pulling out the most practical, most surprising, maybe even slightly sneaky tips.
The stuff that actually makes a difference come exam day.
Exactly. No more feeling like a deer in headlights, right?
No more last-minute cramming either. We're talking real prep.
Right from the start, chapter 1, the book throws you this brilliant metaphor. Forget slaying the exam monster. It's way simpler.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. It's like a...
Yet a puzzle.
Exactly. A puzzle you can totally solve.
I love that because it immediately dials down the fear factor.
It's not about this big, scary thing you have to fight.
It's about strategy. You strategize for puzzles. You don't panic about them.
Absolutely. And that mindset shift is so key right from the get-go.
100%. And speaking of getting in the zone, have you noticed how much your physical space can affect your mental game?
Oh, 100%.
Hmm.
If my desk is a mess, my brain's a mess.
The book dives into that in chapter 3, creating your ideal study sanctuary.
And it doesn't have to be fancy, does it?
No.
Yeah.
In fact, they warn against turning your study space into a full-on cafeteria.
Which I can relate to.
Oh, me too. But they emphasize having that dedicated space, even if it's just a corner, tells your brain, okay, it's focus time.
It's like a mental cue, right?
Exactly, like stepping into a phone booth and coming out as study mode Superman.
I love that. But even Superman needs a schedule.
Truth. And that brings us to, you guessed it, chapter 4, Mastering the Art of Scheduling. Any tips for taming our inner procrastinators?
Well, first off, the book reminds us that our brains aren't machines. We can't just focus for hours on end.
So that whole pulling an all-nighter thing is basically pointless.
Pretty much. The book is all about working with your brain's natural rhythms, not against them. So break down study time into manageable chunks.
Makes sense. How long can we realistically focus anyway?
Most adults, about 25 minutes max before needing a break. They even suggest switching between subjects.
Oh, smart. So you're not stuck with the same thing for hours, getting bored and restless.
Exactly. Keep it fresh, keep it engaging. And speaking of keeping things interesting, Chapter 5's where things get really cool.
Ah, do tell.
It dives into study strategies that go way beyond highlighting and hoping for the best.
Because let's be honest, highlighting is basically just colorful procrastination for most of us.
Totally. This chapter is about outsmarting the challenge, not just trying to brute force your way through it.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What kind of strategies are we talking about? Give me the good stuff.
Well, for one thing, active recall. Like instead of just rereading your notes over and over.
Which, let's face it, feels about as effective as talking to a brick wall sometimes.
Right. You're quizzing yourself, forcing your brain to actually retrieve the info.
So it's like you're not just passively absorbing, you're actively engaging.
Exactly. Making those connections, building those neural pathways.
It's like building mental muscle memory.
Yes. And then there's spaced repetition. Have you ever crammed the night before? Felt super confident?
Oh, tell me about it. I swear my short-term memory during exam season is non-existent.
And then, poof, it's gone the next day.
Like it never even happened.
That's where spaced repetition comes in. The book explains how spacing out your review sessions helps combat that forgetting curve.
So you're strategically reminding your brain not to forget something.
Exactly. Little nudges along the way, instead of one massive cram session.
Okay, that makes way more sense than my usual panic-induced all-nighters.
Your brain will thank you for it, trust me.
I believe it. But let's say you've got your study space, a schedule you can stick to, you're using these awesome techniques. What about those pre-exam jitters?
Ah, yes, the inevitable anxiety. Chapter 6 gets real about that battling pre-exam anxiety.
Because let's be real, it's like a universal experience.
Probably. The book actually compares it to being in a thriller movie, that unbearable suspense.
Ooh, I can totally relate to that. Like, you just want the scary part to be over already.
Exactly. But the book reminds us, it's normal to feel anxious. It's your brain saying, hey, this is important.
So it's not about eliminating the nerves altogether.
It's about managing them, not letting them control you.
So how do we rewrite the script from horror movie to something a little more empowering?
Well, the book talks about deep breathing, visualization. Instead of picturing worst-case scenarios.
You visualize yourself calmly, confidently acing it.
Exactly. You've got this.
I love it. But okay, mental prep aside, there's still the actual revision to do. And Chapter 7 dives into the secret sauce of revision. I'm ready for the magic formula.
And it's not as simple as just rereading your notes 100 times.
No! Don't tell me that's been a waste of time all these years.
It's about making the information stick, really engaging with it.
Okay, so what's the secret?
Summarizing, for one. Condensing those key concepts into your own words.
So you're not just passively reading, you're actively processing, like you said.
Exactly. And then there are mnemonics for those pesky little facts that just won't stay put.
Mnemonics. You mean like those silly rhymes and acronyms we learned back in grade school?
Hey, they work. It's about creating those memorable connections, even if they're a little out there.
It's like tricking your brain into remembering. I love it.
Right. Your brain actually enjoys that kind of playful learning.
Who knew? All right, so we're prepped. We've got our study strategies down. We're even breathing through the anxiety. Showtime. Exam day.
Chapter 8, appropriately titled, The Big Day, Exam Strategy.
Makes the game plan.
Well, it covers the practical stuff. Good breakfast. Arriving early to avoid that last-minute rush.
Essential. Nothing worse than feeling frazzled before you even start.
Right. But it also talks about the mental game. Reading instructions carefully.
The number of times I've messed up because I skimmed the instructions.
It happens. But by taking that extra beat, you avoid those silly mistakes. And what happens if you blank on a question?
Oh, man, that feeling of panic is like nothing else. Everything you thought you knew, just gone.
The book says, don't dwell on it. Flag it. Move on. Come back later.
Okay, that's actually good advice.
Yeah.
Because that dwelling can really throw you off your game.
It can spiral, for sure. So move on, build your confidence with the questions you know, and maybe that'll spark something when you circle back.
Love it. Don't let one tough question derail the whole thing. It's a marathon, not a sprint, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And speaking of marathons, this book even talks about what happens after you cross the finish line, Chapter 10, post-exam reflection, and moving forward.
Because no matter the outcome, exams can take a toll, right? It's like running a marathon. You might hit that finish line.
And still feel like you got hit by a truck.
Exactly. So how do we recover from that exam marathon? What does the book suggest?
Well, it says, first of all, don't just collapse.
I mean, tempting as that may be.
Right. But it's about using that post-exam time intentionally. Think of it as like a cool-down period after a workout.
So we're stretching, we're hydrating, mentally speaking.
Exactly. It's a time for reflection, figuring out what worked for you, what didn't.
Like a post-game analysis.
Yes. Because no matter the outcome, you've learned something, right?
Absolutely. So are there specific questions we should be asking ourselves?
The book suggests asking things like, what did this experience teach me, regardless of the grade?
I like that. It's not just about the number on the paper.
Right. Or how can I use what I learned, even the tough stuff, in the future?
It's about turning those exams into stepping stones, not stumbling blocks.
Exactly. It's all about that growth mindset.
Which is something we can all use a little more of in all areas of life, right?
Absolutely. Exams, projects, even just everyday challenges. It's all about learning and growing.
Couldn't agree more. Well, on that note, we've reached the end of our deep dive into the ultimate guide to acing your exams. What's the one big takeaway you want our listeners to remember?
You've got this. This book is packed with great advice, but it all boils down to you're capable of achieving your goals.
Yes. You have everything you need to succeed already within you.
And sometimes you just need a little reminder, a little toolkit, a little boost.
And that's what we're here for. So to everyone out there tackling those exams, remember, you've got this. We believe in you.
We do. Now go out there and make us proud.
And hey, if those pre-exam jitters start creeping back in, you know where to find us. Until next time, happy studying.